5 records at Trusty Spot Records and Tees. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-da. Well, hello, you've made it back to episode 3 of 5 records at Trusty Spot Records and Tees. Here we are in the shop here in Chesterton, Indiana. Reminder that anything we go over tonight, there will be links in the description if you're interested in grabbing them. We also created a little link on our homepage that will feature just records that were on the show. So if you saw past episodes, listen to me on the show. If you saw past videos we did and you were interested in something, you should be able to find a link for it on that part of our website if it is still in stock and somebody else didn't grab it already. I apologize if you hear a dog drinking water behind me. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, record number 1, Miss Sharon Ridley. So this is Full Moon. It came out in 1978. Sharon, incredible R&B and soul musician, was making singles with this guy named Van McCoy. Van McCoy, he did everything. That's a whole different can of worms. So he wrote The Hustle. I mean, come on, that's huge, right? And some other big stuff. So she got kind of a helping hand up from him early on. They did some singles, but this record is all Sharon. She plays keys and she sings, and not only is it all Sharon, but unlike many R&B and soul vocalists of the time, Sharon also wrote music. So most of this stuff on this record is all Sharon. She wrote it. She only made 2 full-length albums and then rode off into the sunset. This one is the second one. It's totally a hidden soul music treasure. It's like hidden. Don't sleep on it. This is a gem and it should be in a record collection. Also, it is... oh yeah, it's a promo copy for all you record nerds. NRBQ. This stands for the New Rhythm and Blues Quartet. This came out, I think, in 1969. It's their self-titled release. Oh, these guys, you could talk forever on these guys too. So basically, these guys all meet in the 60s. They hit the road, they start playing, they start recording, and they kind of stay out there forever, right? So these guys, they're still playing. We'll get to that in a minute. But they count among their fans and people who look up to them, people like Paul McCartney, Elvis Costello, The Replacements. In fact, in the late 80s, they had some opening dates for a little band from Athens, Georgia called REM. Pretty cool, right? So this thing is like jazz, rock, funk, blues, all just mashed together like in silly putty, and it's just awesome. This record is nothing but fun. It sounds like a party. When you listen to this record, you're in a good mood, and it's the sound of people having fun. It's the highest compliment I can pay to this record and this band. These guys are cool. If you can catch them and see them out there, they're still playing. They've got their founding member, Terry Adams, is still out there doing it. So catch them if you can, while you can. Amazing, great record. Oh, number 3, Gary Wright, Extraction. Oh, this is always the point in the video where I gotta catch my breath. Ever since I became a big YouTube star, I get to the 3rd record and I'm like, man, I gotta really calm down a little bit. Bring it down. Whew. All right, let's get into it. Gary was in Spooky Tooth. Spooky Tooth was a UK band in the 60s. They were like psych prog stuff. He bolted from Spooky Tooth and wanted to have a solo career. This is his first solo record. So Gary is a guy that likes to make rock music. This is a rock record. He likes to write big songs with catchy choruses, like the kind of stuff you want to hear, like the anthem stuff in big venues. He is another guy that played with a ton of big names. George Harrison was one of his buddies. George, I don't know if you heard of him. He was in a different British band. They did some stuff that was pretty good. But the last surprise about Gary, and this is a cool thing to know about him, this record came out a few years before he released another thing that had a little song called Dreamweaver on it. That's that same guy. Pretty cool, right? What do we got here? Oh, we got Eric von Schmidt. Okay, Eric von Schmidt, 2nd right, 3rd row. What do we say about Eric von Schmidt? If you don't know who he is, he's like the folk music and country blues darling of the 1950s and 60s. He was huge in the New England music scene, ran around Cambridge and knew all these people around there. This is like a lo-fi, stripped down, just record where you feel every note, man. And he's like, he runs the gamut emotionally. Sometimes it's like ridiculous and funny. Sometimes it's really poignant and moving and heartbreaking. But it's always a storyteller kind of thing. So Eric is a guy who tells stories, which leads me to the next point about Eric. one of his really good buddies, also a storyteller, a guy named Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan loved Eric. They hung out lots. They gave each other music and got drunk together. And there's even on the back of this record, this is a hype sticker that is still there because this thing is in beautiful shape. There is some information right there from Bob Dylan where he's talking about our boy Eric von Schmidt. So highly recommend. Very cool, very different. You should own it. All right, already to number 5. Did we do them all? 1, 2. We did do them all. Okay. Oh, buckle up. This is a big one. Now's the time. 1977, maybe 78. I don't know. Recorded in 77 for sure. This is a quintet of 5 very accomplished jazz musicians. You've got Mary Osborne, played guitar. Marian McPartland played piano. You've got V or Vi. I'm not sure how to say her first name, but she played sax. Her real first name is Elvira. You've got Lynn Milano on bass and Dottie Dodgion on drums. So these are accomplished jazz musicians in their own right. But something in 1977 happened in the month of June in Rochester, New York, at a little inn. It was called like the Round Towner. It was like a chain of motels at the time. They had a cocktail lounge. It was called the Monticello Room. And these ladies got together. They had played like once before, and they got together for a show and just blew the roof off the joint. Here's why it matters. They did this because the seed had been planted about potentially having a women's night at the Newport Jazz Festival. So, you know, the Newport Jazz Festival, huge, right? So them getting together to do this was try to help lift that idea off the ground to show people that they could do it. Jazz was very predominantly male dominated at this point in time, and women were kind of relegated to being like, well, you could sing a little bit, thanks honey, like that kind of stuff. But these ladies had chops. Most people thought that women weren't strong enough to like really stretch out when it came to playing jazz and like get there when it came to the bop stuff. So they got together and they absolutely just took it into outer space. And then it got recorded. So they played a couple dates in this little bar, and then this record is the result of it. Now here's the cool part. Well, there's 2 cool parts about it. So they called it Now's the Time because number 1, it's a cut on the album, which by the way, there's stuff on here from Ellington and Monk and Parker and some other greats that it's executed beautifully. But they wanted to call it Now's the Time because they were tired of women being invisible in jazz, and they were saying now's the time to be seen. So that's a huge thing. Number 2, they walked away from it. They could have stayed together doing stuff, but they were like, we proved our point, dummies, and then that was it, right? Huge. So this record is like, to me, it's historical. It's hard to find. It was only pressed once. It's not expensive, and it should be. And if you're a jazz fan, this is a record that absolutely should be in your collection because it's a big part when it comes to the history of jazz and the whole story. So that's it. All right, that has been 5 records at Trusty Spot Records and Tees. Again, we are in Chesterton, Indiana, Tuesday through Sunday till 6 p.m. We're open 24/7 online at trustyspot.com. And that's it. 5 records at Trusty Spot Records and Tees. Come back and see it again next week. Maybe buy something. Maybe I'll send you a sticker. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. That's it. Goodbye. 5 records at Trusty Spot Records and Tees. Ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da.